Retro.
Hello there. This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continuously unexpected. So uncivilized.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krabs.
And it's Monday, so we're kicking off this week with the next episode in our Clone Wars rewatch. But before we dive into that, Jay, I want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are.
Dive. I see what you did there. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Podcast Stardust.
Right. So the digital line, the signal boosted to maximum output, our diving gear has been checked. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So this is our discussion of episode 2 from season 4 of the Clone Wars, which is called Gungan Attack. Misa gonna beat you. All right. So this is the second episode in this 3-episode arc that has to do with Mon Cala and the civil war that's going on between the Mon Calamari and the Quarren, which we talked about quite a bit last week. So Jay, you want to go ahead and give us the summary of this episode?
Sure thing. Having been routed by the Quarren and the Separatists, Prince Lee-Char of the Mon Calamari confers with the Jedi and Padme about their next steps. They reach out to the Jedi Council and they decide to send Gungan reinforcements. When the Gungans arrive, it appears the Mon Calamari and the Republic will be victorious until Riff Tamson unleashes his own reinforcements. As the episode concludes, Ahsoka and Lee-Char escape, and the prince vows to unify all the people of his world.
Right. So, yeah, again, second episode in the 3-episode arc here, and it is a very much where the sides take turns getting the upper hand on this one. What do you think about it overall, Jay?
Well, my favorite part is probably just watching Kit Fisto's, tendrils floating in the water. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, but it's just one of those episodes I always enjoy. It really keeps the story moving. It's this, as you said, the central episode in this arc. The underwater action's a lot of fun. It's visually still pretty impressive. And I like that it gives the Gungans a chance to be front and center and just kind of reminds you that there are more than just, a lot of people tend to give them credit for. So they peek their heads in every once in a while in the Clone Wars. And this is one of those times. So yeah, so it's just a solid episode. But what about you?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it as well. I love the fact that, the previous episode showed us the squid people and the Quarren and the fish people and the Mon Cala, not getting along. And then Kit Fisto, who's the, octopi type alien, and then shows up. And then we got the Riff Tamson, who's the shark species of Star Wars there. And then now we get the amphibians with the Gungans in this episode. And so it's kind of fun seeing all the additions from the different water planets that have been appearing in this. And it's and I really like the logic that they used in this one from the Jedi Council, which is we don't have time to outfit another clone army to deal with this situation. So we need to consult some allies. Who could we? And Yoda knows exactly who he's thinking of this entire time, but he's gently leading the rest of the Jedi Council towards this conclusion that there are the Gungans. They like Padme. They also kind of owe a few of our Jedi some favors. We should definitely reach out to them. And then all of a sudden, everyone around the room was like, yeah, that was my idea. But it really was Yoda that brought this whole thing to bear on it. But what did you think? What did you think about the Gungan involvement in this episode?
Well, like I said, it's good to see them because they've proven themselves to be allies. And of course, Jar Jar just getting to be back with the old gang. And what cracked me up is when he says, "Oh, Annie, it's so nice to be seeing you." That's almost identical to what he says in Robot Chicken. You knew I had to bring up Robot Chicken.
Of course you did. Yeah.
But no, I think it was a clever way to utilize that particular species and just show that, yeah, I mean, they were proven to be great allies, and like I said, just kind of getting the band back together, so to speak. But one thing that hit me before we move on and before I forget, every time I see Riff Tamson's name, I think of Biff Tannen from Back to the Future. Is there ever been any, like, hint that that is a possible inspiration for that character?
Well, I'm not going to say no, but I haven't come across any. That had not occurred to me until you mentioned it. So, um,
Because every
the
time I
only
say Riff, I almost say Biff.
sure I can see why. The biggest, if I were to say no, the reason is simply because there's such a contrast in their personalities. Where
Mhm.
Biff is a bumbling oaf of a bully, Riff is you know, he gets everyone's face, and he's got the mic to back up everything he says in
Mhm.
this situation, and he's also playing a longer game than anything Biff would have thought of. But I do
True.
like the connection; that is kind of fun. Um,
Just
but
a
getting
big
back to
bully.
getting back to the Gungans for just a second. What one of the things I appreciate about the Clone Wars is that when we do get Gungans outside of Jar Jar, because Jar Jar is a personality and we can set him aside, he's not necessarily representative of every Gungan, but
Sure.
the army shows up and they're competent in this. And really, they were competent in the Phantom Menace. They may have been
Mhm.
outmatched by the technology, but it was a nice reminder that they are capable of doing what they want. What did them in here was the secret reinforcements that Riff Tamson and the Separatists had waiting in the wings, because
Right.
they knew an attack was coming. So they let the Gungans show up, do their thing, and then they counterattacked the Gungans and captured a whole bunch of them. The other thing about the Gungans is that the Jedi Council contacts them. Boss Nass is no longer in charge. I didn't catch the name of the Gungan that was leading that council of Gungans there, but he receives the Jedi message warmly. But when Yoda and Mace Windu make that request, he's like, "Oh, mucha discussion this is going to take." And Jar Jar Binks is standing right there, and he's like, "What are you thinking?" Padme is our, I could only do Jar Jar for so long, but the point Jar Jar makes is that Padme is there. She's in trouble. She's been our ally. She's come to our aid countless times. We owe her. And then this other boss is like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let's do it." So I don't know. It's a fine little scene. If I were to make one change, it would make that boss just seem a little bit more intelligent and thoughtful than other than that outburst by Jar Jar, convincing him to, go from
Mhm.
a point of deliberation to we're acting now. Something a little bit more eloquent in the way, but minor nitpick in the grand scheme of things.
Sure. Sure. No, I would agree.
Yeah. So the Gungans show up, they do their things. I absolutely love that they use their what do they call them? Goombas, that to take out the hydroid Medusas there. That
Yes.
caused the Mon Calamari and the clones so much trouble. And they just swam right past those things like, what trouble? Just chucked them
Right.
right at them. And I forgot about that part prior to rewatching this episode. But what was your take on all that?
Yeah, and again, it's so great to revisit these because I feel like there's a lot of times where, and I've said this a bazillion times, so our regular listeners have heard me say this before, but the first couple of times anyways that I watched these episodes was when my kids were little. So I feel like I just kind of ingested them more than
Hmm.
anything else. And so I never really paid attention to a lot of the finer details in these episodes. And so rewatching these makes me catch a lot of that kind of stuff like you were just saying, and just appreciate the detail and the intentionality I think that was put into a lot of the ways that things were done.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's like, and the thing that I also love about it is that the Gungans are regarded as primitives by so much of the galaxy, and Riff Tamson has this superiority complex. And these hydroid Medusas come from his home world, and there's no defense on Mon Cala to them. But yet, again, I'm kind of repeating myself. The Gungans show up and they're like, do.
Right.
There they go. Yeah, no problem. We took those things out, and it's up to the Separatists with their overwhelming number of droids to regain the advantage over this.
Hmm.
It's more of a numbers game than it is any type of superiority situation going on.
Sure. And I think, that's characteristic of Star Wars in a lot of ways. I mean, you've got, as you said, Gungans, not necessarily primitive, but I guess you could say in relationship to what Riff has here.
Mhm.
But I mean, the Ewoks were the same way, just kind of going up against the big baddie kind of thing, almost like an underdog situation.
Right, right. Exactly. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about Lee-Char in this episode. It's it's an interesting character. He is the prince. We still don't know what happened to his father. He just was murdered by someone. And the Quarren don't believe he was capable, or at least they're using that as an excuse to create this uprising. And you've got Akbar saying things like, you're our only hope in this situation, that the people will fight if they see you and that they know you survive. And then Ahsoka says things like, you don't have to be a great warrior in order to be a great leader. Some leaders are great at inspiring others. So, a lot of fortune cookie type of stuff going on here. But
Hmm.
I kind of felt that I've been thinking about this a lot, that he is wavering from being competent to really just kind of doing whatever anyone around him tells him that he should do. Because like there's these instances in this episode where it's like, we should totally run away and escape. And he's like, well, my place was my people. We really should go away. Okay, I think the best thing, let's ask the prince what we thinks we do. We should run away after you just heard Anakin say it.
Hmm.
He's impressionable, but at the same time, in this episode, he sees a whole lot of his people have been taken prisoner and they're being herded off to that internment camp. And without asking anyone, he finds that conch shell, sounds it, and tells everyone that, I am not going to rest until our planet is unified again. And he does. He inspires everyone in that situation. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what my question here is with all this, but what did you make of Lee-Char in this episode?
Well, as I said in the last episode that we just reviewed, I feel for him because he's young. He's just taking over this mantle that was kind of thrust upon him after his dad passed. And like you said, he's got all of these different people chirping in his ear, like, you should do this. Oh, wait, no, don't do that. Oh, this is the best course of action. But oh, you should really be doing this. So, when you said that he's impressionable, but yet he's also kind of relenting to some of these things that other people wants him to do, but he's wanting to step up to be a leader. I don't think he really knows exactly what to do, and there's just so many different factors that are involved with this entire situation, and it just keeps getting piled on, as you said, with his people getting taken prisoner and then, being turned into slaves and all of these different types of things. And I think one of the things that does actually ground him a little bit is that quote from Ahsoka. And that is a quote that, as an Ahsoka cosplayer, I see a lot of cosplayers use this quote, and I have as well. You don't have to carry a sword to be powerful. Some leader strength is in inspiring others. And you had alluded to the fortune cookie, in that the strongest swords are forged in what was it? Or I had it written down and I can't remember what it was. But at any rate, so I think he relates to Ahsoka in a lot of ways because she is also a young leader, even though she's a Jedi, and that's kind of what's expected of them, that it kind of puts it into perspective for him that, okay, I need to go this route. This is what I need to do to, kind of, be solidified as who I am instead of being pulled in this direction and that direction and that direction. So I did feel for him, long story
Oh
short.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's been put in an impossible situation, and
Yeah.
really there is an issue here on Mon Cala. There haven't been contingencies put in place. The whole planet knew they had a young, inexperienced prince.
Oh, yeah.
In thinking back to like medieval era type of things, when you've got a young heir and the leader dies, you put a regent someone who's got experience, who can guide and lead the kingdom until that prince, princess, whoever becomes of age and can take over after they've had an opportunity to gain some experience and learn the lessons they need to learn. Lee-Char doesn't seem to be given any of that. And so over the course of this episode, we see one of the smart things he does is that he does listen to the council of everybody else, but then they keep telling him it's up to you to decide. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes he just, decides to go with whatever was said to him the most forcefully. But as this episode wears on, we see him in the middle of the battle that's going on around him, and as opposed to being helpless, he picks up the rifle and starts shooting at battle droids. He
Mm-hmm.
sees his people being taken off to the internment camp, and he wants desperately to do something about it, but he knows there's no action he can take at that moment to liberate them. But he lets those people know that you haven't been abandoned. I see you. I'll be back in the situation. So yeah, you gave away your position in that situation, which may not have been the most well-advised thing to do, but he's getting ideas, and I think that's reflected in the way that Akbar treats him. Because at the beginning of the last episode, when Tina Seam is talking to them, she basically says, Akbar, you're in charge of looking after him and advising him, whatever. And Akbar is like, he's inexperienced, he can't do it, we got to mount the defense. And now Akbar is saying things like that. You are our only hope. You have to encourage the people. You have to inspire them in this situation.
Yeah.
So I
He's
don't know that
definitely changed
Akbar's,
his tune.
yeah, I don't know that Akbar's definitely come around to the point of, you're not capable of devising the tactics, but you are an important piece in all of this, and we need you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy to think about, just a quick aside, what, Akbar and Anakin working together like this and just knowing what the future holds and thinking, you're not going to like this guy. You don't know it's the same guy, but
Yeah,
a
we kinda
little
had that
further down the line.
conversation last week,
Mm-hmm.
right? In that,
Right.
you know, Akbar is never gonna know that Anakin became Darth Vader, or at least not
Sure.
during when it's relevant during the original trilogy, but Darth Vader is gonna know who Akbar is, but he never
Yes.
gets a chance to go head to head against
Mm-hmm.
him with the fleet or anything like that. The closest that he gets with a Mon Calamari is at Scarif during Rogue One with Admiral
Right.
Raddus,
Oh, yeah. True. Yep.
which is not the same thing. And then, coincidentally, Akbar is in command of the Raddus during The Last Jedi, but we all saw how that turned out. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
not neither here nor there. But anyway, backing up into the earlier part of this episode, we get a few appearances from Count Dooku on this. And I don't know that there's any groundbreaking, earth-shattering type of revelations to be discussed, other than this, in that Dooku left the Jedi Order, and he did so over a disagreement with a number of principles that the Jedi embodied and believed in. But ostensibly, it was because he was going to go out to these worlds that became the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the Separatists, and give them a voice. But we see behind the scenes how ruthless he actually is in this episode, which is like, take all the prisoners and put them in internment camps. And that Quarren leader's like, well, surely you don't mean all the prisoners, not the women and children. And Dooku's
Right.
like, nope, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Send them on down there. And, put them to work. And, it's like, it's all this like evil in the background type of thing that Dooku is doing. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there's anything particularly revelatory about that observation, but what did you think of all that?
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually had that in my brain that I wanted to bring up as well, is that it really does showcase Dooku as being truly evil in that way, and that he would overstep that particular boundary. And but I have to ask too, what was the main reason that they wanted this world specifically? Was there some advantage to having, Mon Cal as, an attack, in an attack? Because I
Well,
missed
that's
that.
yeah, I don't know that they told us, but
Mhm.
we all know what's going on in the background, which is Sidious.
Conquer.
Well, right. The whole point of of the Clone Wars was to engage this galaxy in a war that would put enough clones in Republic resources, then would come Imperial resources, in a place where Palpatine could exert his force and his power to take over the galaxy and wipe out the Jedi in the process. And then you have the show that's going on for the Separatists, which is that they're fighting for their own independence. They believe the Republic is not adequately representing them. They want to go off and break off on their own, and the Republic won't stand for that. And so the Quarren are siding with the Separatists. They want to bring this into the Confederacy. And really what it comes down to is that this is a way to draw out the conflict, spread the resources, conquer another world. Mon Cala is not a lightweight in galactic politics, right? It's an important world. And if you get them embroiled in the world, well, then, you decimate the planet to some degree. Even if the Mon Calamari come out on top, they aren't as strong as they once were. And this is a planet that can be subjugated later. And that's, in fact, what happens during the Darth Vader comics. I don't know if we've ever discussed those issues, but we're going to need to at some point. There's a whole lot of Charles Soule Darth Vader comics we need to talk about, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. So I think there's that. But I don't think the goal is like, we're going to conquer this planet. We're going to get access to this rare ore like we got with Andor. That type of a thing. It is just this is another planet in the path of conquest over the course of the Clone Wars.
That makes sense. And I guess, the reason why that went over my head, if you will, is just because I feel like a lot of times during the Clone Wars, they say, this particular planet because of the trade route or where it's positioned, or like you said, the resources that they can provide, or, it's strategic in this, or this. But that's why I was like, why do they want this? It just seems like they just, they're just existing, and then here they come, kind of thing.
Well, right. And sometimes when you've got this type of a war going on, it's like, we attack this world, and if we're successful, then it drives the other side that much closer to capitulating and suing for peace. And so there's that to it. But really, I mean, we see what Dooku's aim is that take all the prisoners and put them in internment camps, put them into work. They're going to be slaves in this situation. He has his own version of it. Looking ahead, we know how this whole arc turns out. But suppose the Separatists had been successful and the Quarren conquered this. And the Quarren, I don't think, intended to slave the Mon Calamari in this situation. They just wanted to install one of their own as rulers. It's been Mon Calamari ruling this planet forever and ever. And they want their voice heard. They're claiming that the Mon Calamari aren't adequately representing them. Well, that's perfectly in tune with what the Separatists are saying. And that's a reason why the Quarren would side with the Separatists. But as we see, there's early cracks in this alliance here. The Quarren don't want to wipe out the Mon Calamari. They don't want to completely subjugate them. They don't want to enslave them. They just want to be in charge for now. And so you can see, I can't remember what their leader's name is, but in the last episode, he went over and comforted Lee-Char, about, I'm sorry for your loss, because, he told him that, your father was someone I could trust. I'm paraphrasing here, that he was an ally, and now situations are different. And now he's like, well, certainly we have to take the warriors prisoner, but we don't have to take the women and children who were involved in the fight prisoner. And Dooku's saying, nope, that's what we're going to do. And so you can kind of see a crack in this overall scheme on this, is that's not what he signed up. That's not what he thought he was doing in this situation.
And I think that that's probably where some of Lee-Char's ambivalence comes from too, because I don't think that he thought that the Quarren were going to be as big of an enemy, so to speak, as they were, because of exactly what you just pointed out with him, the Quarren coming to him after his father died. We were of opposite sides, but we weren't mortal enemies, kind of thing.
Right. Well, and then, Lee-Char started this last, the previous episode by saying, it's like, I will be a leader for the Quarren and my own people.
Right.
And, he says in this episode, I want to unify this entire planet. Not just talking about he's going to achieve a victory for the Mon Calamari. He's time after time, he's like, I am here for the betterment of everyone on Mon Cala. But in order to get to that, he's going to have to fight the Quarren. So there's that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think we've hit like most of the major thematic parts of this episode. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that final battle where the Separatists have shown up with the reinforcements. And I can't remember what they call those like droid ships that look like oversized squid, 4-tentacle squid. But Riff Tamson says the whole muck it up type of a thing. And so they start spinning and they create the little whirlpool there, that captures various people and pulls them out of the battle, only for Anakin to, under Akbar's advisement, take out one of the legs and does. I just enjoy that action sequence. I don't know that I have anything, profound to say about it, but what did you think about that?
Oh yeah, it was a good one. And I also liked the little bit of very well placed humor, when Anakin says we need to swim fast, and Padme says the boy from a desert planet. That was cute.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that exchange up. Does it not make them seem overly familiar?
Oh yeah.
I saw that.
I still love it though.
Oh no. I love it too. I thought it was fantastic. But they said it in front of a whole bunch of people. And
right.
You would think when they're in public, with the exception of maybe around Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, because they're all friends, and Anakin and Obi-Wan, they aided Padme through 2 previous major events and all this, and they can be friendly and stuff like that. But when they're teasing each other that way in such a familiar fashion in front of a whole bunch of other people, it's like, what is with you two? You're a Jedi general, you're a senator. When do you have the opportunity to hang out and develop this type of rapport? You know what I mean? It's just I don't want to overstate it, but it was just kind of like, wow, you guys are just going to be all kinds of like flirty in front of other people that way.
Yeah, you're almost like waiting for Anakin to go, all right, wifey, kind of
yeah.
thing. It's almost like, has the pressure from being down so deep under the ocean like messed with your brain?
Not everyone got to swim out to the island in the middle of their favorite lake and then dry off as they listen to the birds.
Exactly.
I don't know. It was I don't want to make a big deal out of it. It was just like, wow, you guys just really said that in front of a whole bunch of people as opposed to teasing each other in private.
And that's what I think I loved about that exchange, was that it was just sort of like slid right in there, and it kind of a blink and you miss it sort of thing. But of course, I latch onto that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay. Well, there'll be some more significant things to talk about at the end of the next episode, but I think we've kind of exhausted this one. So with that, I'll just thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and this discussion of the Clone Wars as we get through our rewatch. If you've enjoyed it and you want to make sure you get the next entry in our Clone Wars rewatch, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And then every Monday, we'll be discussing the Clone Wars, and you'll get those downloaded for you automatically. We appreciate your ratings, reviews, comments, wherever that you can do to support the show on your podcatcher of choice. I've had fun lately going over to Spotify and interacting with some people there. We've been getting comments on YouTube. That's always fun. Appreciate the reviews on Apple Podcasts. We love hearing from y'all. So keep that up, and I'll try to get back to everyone. And Jay will give you some more contact information here in just a second. So speaking of just a second, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are and where else we can be found around the internet?
Absolutely. And you don't even need sonar to find us. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And you can also check out all of our Pinterest boards and our 2 YouTube outlets. So we are on both YouTube and YouTube Music, where you can find all of our episodes. So please subscribe, share those out with your friends. And those do also support ratings and reviews and some comments too. And then if you'd like to drop us a line and you have anything that you'd love to say about this episode or any others, you can do so at podcaststardust@gmail.com. And always send us your questions too. We'd love to be able to answer those on show. And if you would like to snag a piece of Podcast Stardust merch, we do have a TeePublic store, and the link is in our show notes, where you can get online and pick from 7 different show logo designs on all kinds of apparel and fun home goods, kitchen gadgets, that type of thing. And once again, that is on TeePublic.
All right. What do you got going on in cosplay?
Well, I am Ahsoka, but not in this particular version, which cracks me up, by the way, because it's just basically just a little mask over top of her face. And I thought, gosh, if anybody just grabbed that, they could really mess her up big time. So I don't do that particular version of Ahsoka, but I do also Hera 2 versions of Hera, as well as My Fourth Sister, original concept Mandalorian based on Tahiri Vela from Legends, and some other fun stuff as well. So check that out at j.snips cosplay.
All right, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we're going to discuss some Star Wars comics with a look at issues 1 through 6. So the first half of the limited series Legacy of Vader. It's a Kylo Ren series. It's really good. So I'm hoping everyone can come join us for that. And then on Friday, we are going to end the week with a look at some recent Star Wars news, and hopefully the 9th Jedi trailer will finally drop by then. And so we'll be able to catch that, because it didn't happen last week when they said. All right. Well, with all that, thanks for listening to episode 1054 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.